Push the button!
Button. Who's got the button?
Alright, welcome to Roll for Effort. Tonight we're going to be talking about DM styles again. Just like last month. But last month we kind of deep dived a little bit onto Theater of the Mind DMing, and now we're going to talk about the flip side of that coin, which is terrain DMing. And it is a very real, unique thing.
Indeed. Whether it's a virtual tabletop or a physical tabletop.
Yes. So the big key difference is that in terrain DMing, you get to shuffle off a lot of the mental load of having to try and remember where everything is and distances and stuff, and you put a map down in front of your players. And that map can be as complicated as some of the depictions we're showing here, or as simple as Ultimate Dungeon terrain, showed here. So
it can even be a blank whiteboard that you go in with with like a dry erase or a wet erase marker, and you can just draw out that, hey, here's the room, here's a wall. Like it can be completely simple.
Yeah, especially if you're a travel DM, that's the way to do it. You get a whiteboard that you're just carrying around with you and putting markers on. It's an awesome way.
And I used to do that. That's how I started DMing. I bought a 4th edition module, and I had it came with 2 maps. And I thought, I was because I had never DM'd before, and I was like, this is everything I need. And then, of course, I immediately realized, oh, wait.
I need so much more.
Right. How am I going to talk about this place without a map?
Right.
And so point there, I think terrain DMing in some ways is a very easy way for new dungeon masters to start, because you can set everything up in advance and you don't have to think about trying to keep it all in your head to explain it as you go.
Right. How do I describe this massive room and where these walls are and what they can see?
Well, I think new DMs, you're right. But using a whiteboard or a dry erase mat, that's the way to do it. Obviously, as you look at the things we've got here, there's a lot of work on both the digital side and that crafting table side that a new DM is going to be overwhelmed with. So if I was a new DM getting into terrain DMing, I would just start with go get a whiteboard and some dry erase markers and go to town on that, and then you can go build up to using digital art if you're playing on a virtual tabletop or on the physical side, which you see here.
Yep. Yeah, and both can be, both are available for purchase in multiple different lanes that you can take, both for virtual and for physical. There are places you can go to buy these things. If you have the aptitude to draw, that's kind of a different skill than building the physical. I don't have the skill to do either of these images on the left, but I can readily do the images on the right. Maybe not so badass, but they're doable. And there are just literally loads and loads of tutorials all over YouTube that will teach you how to do the styles, like both of the top-down style here and the more three-dimensional top-down style. And there are loads of YouTube videos that can teach you how to do all these building things, like the DM Scotties and the Professor Dungeon Master and the Black Magic Craft. And,
Black Magic Craft, Dungeon Craft, DM Scotty. All really excellent resources. There's a gigantic community on Facebook which you should join, called the Crafters Guild, the DM Crafters Guild. So let's really kind of split this down the line. So let's start off with all the cons. What are all the cons you guys can think of when it comes to terrain DMing? Because there are many, and they're hidden, but they're there. And so knowing about them might help you kind of decide if that's what you want to do or work around them.
So I'll tell you one of the biggest cons that I've gotten. Obviously, these images you see on the right here are from my game room. Is the space you're going to need in order to store it. And if you're traveling now, I've actually built mine so that you can travel with it, but in general, it's harder to travel with. So it takes it a while to get that. Obviously, the storage space is probably a big con. So the second big con is it takes some time to set up. So I get good examples. I've played with some Dwarven Forge stuff, which, by the way, is some of the most amazing looking terrain you can get on the net. But it takes a while. And so, and if you got your rooms and you're going to be spending maybe a couple hours before the game, setting it up so that when the actual game is being played, doesn't take long. You got it on a tray, you bring it up, put it on the table, you play. So there's the setup time, that you're going to need to do it. I think that, to me, that's the three main things that you're going to have as a con: storage space, portability, and setup time.
I think another thing to add to con is, depending on how in-depth you go, you run the risk of turning your role-playing game into a board game. That can potentially be a threat. Like, if a board game is what you're going for simplicity, totally. But if you're looking for more of a role-playing thing, you don't want to get yourself stuck into the habit of counting spaces, because then it's just a shy thing of rolling a dice to see how many squares you move. It's a potential con.
Right, absolutely. And I completely agree with that sentiment. I think there's a real danger when you play with any maps of getting locked in and feeling like you're trapped as a DM in a little bit of a way. Because what if you have this amazing, like what Chuck was just talking about? What if you spend an hour building out the perfect dungeon, right? And your players instead want to go someplace else.
Right?
And they want to do something else that you didn't prep for.
Right. I think prep falls in both a pro and a con, though, potentially. But I think
that's true.
I think another con is overdoing your dungeon, overdoing your terrain. You might have so much stuff you made this great, you made this great house, and you made all the interior. That might be way overkill, because really, how much time are you going to spend inside this one building, or inside this thing? And how tall did you build your walls? Can everybody see what's actually happening, or does everybody have to get up and lean and look over and reaching in and knocking stuff over? You can go too far with terrain. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Chuck, your setup here, it's nice and open. Everybody can see everything. Like this one is just one key feature of this wall, which looks like it's easy enough to see through. And it looks like, from what I'm seeing in the picture, it looks like the important details are just in that entrance. And I'm assuming there's something else on the other side that's readily open for players to see. And again, here, everything's nice and open.
Yeah, it's open. And the idea here is, and if you look at those, again, I built mine based on portability, so I can actually carry this to anywhere I want. So I can take it to your house, I can take it to somebody else's house. That top right picture up here, that one is a whole bunch of stackers, which Black Magic Craft and others have built these stackers. And you just built these things and move them around so that it's the idea of corridors, the idea of elevation, the idea of places they can go. It's not a perfect one-to-one map of the adventure that's there. So it's really representational. To me, it's probably the biggest pro for doing terrain, whether it's be digital or physical like this, is it gives the players that campfire to look at while they're playing the game.
Yeah.
And I'll use this one in the middle. So this picture in the middle was played in a game of a few weeks ago, and I had 4 players around the table, and two of those players, this was their very first tabletop role-playing game. Okay. And they were able to look at this and go, oh, there's doors, and there's some stairs down into this crypt thing, and there's these sarcophagi. And obviously that's not everything that's in a room of a typical tomb, but it gave them something to at least start asking questions. What's in the sarcophagi? What's in the door? Where was a pit that was there? What's in the pit? Things like that. So it gives them some ideas. Now, you don't want to go through like you notice I don't have every torch in the room, or if there are torches, there are lanterns, and you can do that, of course, but just give them a few things in each room to give them an idea of what can I interact with, what can I start asking for.
I almost think the way you're talking about this, that not every torch is shown and not every, all the minutia, that's actually an important thing. I believe that fits for both theater of the mind and for terrain. You don't want to over describe. You don't want to have things that aren't necessarily important because players might focus on those things. Like if you go through talking about, oh, there are 17 torches in this room, or if in the thing, if you actually place 17 torches, players might be like, well, why are there so many torches? Why are they all here? And that might kind of pull them away from what they're actually doing, because they might go to investigate. Why is all this here? It's that descriptive detail. You describe the things that are important, which is definitely a big thing for this for the terrain crafted here. Like the sarcophagi, the pit, the doors, the stairs, like those are important elements that you need to kind of focus on to draw that, that vision into that campfire.
Yeah, and that's a frustrating moment to be in as a DM when you've put something in there because you thought it looked cool, but then all of a sudden your players spend 20 minutes arguing about what it could be, and you as the DM know, guys, it's just a statue. There's nothing special about that. But you can't say that, or can you? I don't know. It depends on the moment, but
then that's going to be something. If you're preparing for rooms, and I do this all the time, obviously, because all of these came from recent games of mine. The thing that you're going to talk about here is I don't put anything on there that doesn't have some sort of potential for a story element.
Yeah.
So, for instance, I have some torches, and if one of the torches is what actually opens up the pit, so the pit wouldn't be there, but the torches would be there. So I would go ahead and put the torches. Now, of course, they may ignore the torches and not worry about it, because there may be another way to figure that out. But the key when you're doing terrain is don't put anything on there that you're not willing to add into the story somehow.
Right. Yeah. Yes. Exactly. I guess
that's a great tip.
Yeah, exactly. Put the important stuff on there. Like, don't worry about the skylights.
Players, then you start going into the next level where you start putting stuff that doesn't matter. So, like, you put the torches in there even though they don't do anything, because they'll go and they'll mess with the torches because everybody's seen the trope of, oh, I clicked down the torch sconce and the secret. Right.
Well, see, that leads right into, if you're only placing important things, the distraction could be important. Exactly. I put these torches here because part of that pressure is you are curious about the sarcophagi, but what's going on with these 3 torches in a row on this wall? Like, let's go investigate those torches. And the misdirection could be an important key. So like, that still follows right into the important pieces are described.
Right.
If a misdirection is needed there. I mean, that could be part of a trap.
Yeah.
It could be a total setup of pull that thing, pit opens beneath you.
Yeah, I was just thinking that you could play with that if players do get distracted with your terrain. Like that statue situation I described. Well, maybe, pulling the statue's arm actually triggers an alarm someplace else in the dungeon,
Right.
Klaxon goes off or something. So that's a good idea.
Totally.
All right, so we kind of started delving into the pros about this. I'm gonna introduce a pro here. If you have players who are extremely interested in the tactic game or the power gaming, they love maps and that kind of thing because they want to be able to position themselves just right or come up with the right strategy to play in.
Right, using that cover, going in there like an assault team, rounding these corners. Everybody's moving under cover of the next guy and some such.
Right, it's like a SWAT blueprint to them. It's
right. Yeah, and that's definitely a good pro for maps, is that it lays that tactical field out, and that's one of the best things about terrain or about a map is when position and distance matter is one of the best times to utilize the terrain situation.
Right, and you as a dungeon master won't have to think about it as much because you have it already laid out. And that's you were talking about prep time as being both a negative and a positive, right? Mm-hmm. The problem with terrain DMing is that you spend hours in advance creating this terrain, setting it up, getting it just right. But the glorious part about it on the flip side is that it's set up and you're ready to go, and you don't have to spend as much time talking about, you know, all of the little details that are there, or having to try and remember it, or get your players to remember it.
That's true, except I'm going to give you a pro of the terrain that I've built, the way I've done it with, you know, the stackers, the walls that you see around the crypt and all that. All three of these tables I can set up in about 3 minutes.
Yep, and that's I think that's due to the simplicity of it. Like it's the simplicity. What's the word I'm looking for? I'll just say it another way. Making it simple makes it better in that sense that everybody can see what's going on, and the implications of how big it actually is are there.
Yeah. And I think that speaks to a testimony of what you can get at when you get experience doing this. You know, just like with the theater of the mind, like a DM who focuses a lot on theater of the mind gets really good at it, and it's like being drawn into a storyteller's tale, and it's enrapturing to listen to them talk. A terrain DM, when they get really good at learning how to build a really interesting map, it's like an engagement magnet, you know, for the players, and it may not take you that long once you have a lot of experience doing it. Also, you know, I mentioned that it takes a long time to craft this stuff, but the truth is it's a one-time investment, you know, once you've got it made. Now you have it made. Now you can use these stackers over and over again.
All right, you only have to build it once, unless you're expanding.
Right. Now, you'll never just build it once, because you'll always just keep making more stuff, but
yeah,
it's almost like a game in and of itself to start building these models and scenes and that kind of thing.
Yep, I have boxes of it over in the other room.
Yeah, I do too. I have an entire wall in my garage which is dedicated to miniatures and terrain parts and stuff, and then another section in my kitchen. And then you can't tell, but there's a dresser behind me that has drawers, and they're full of random pieces and stuff too.
Right. And one of the pros here, you know, again, to go back to the terrain side, whereas in Theater of the Mind, you would have to say, oh, well, you walk into a room, you know, looking here at this center picture again, like you would have to describe, you walk into a room, it's, you know, 30 feet by 50 feet. There are, you know, 4 stone sarcophagi laid out, and a pit in the far south centered wall of the chamber. Yeah, like, I mean, obviously you could go a lot more better with the description. That was really cheap, I know. But instead of going through all that thing, you lay this out, and players automatically can get out. You'll have to forgive, the scale is not set, but you have to forgive and go, oh, wow, that's definitely 30 feet. That's 50 feet. I'm looking right at it. If I know I can move 20 feet, I can cross over this side and check out this thing, or
it's faster.
I can sprint in and run over this way to see what's going on here.
Yeah, it's
like your scales are there.
To build on what you were just saying there, though, okay, so take that room. So now I don't have to talk about the sarcophagi. I can say you enter a room, there's 4 sarcophagi. They are covered in cobwebs. There is dust throughout the room. You don't, so you build more, and then so you can start building suspense. You can start building tension into your game by the other things you described. You're not spending the time describing it's a 30 by 50 room with 4 sarcophagi and a pit. You know, that piece is already there. That's the stuff. Now you're building on top of it with your theater of the mind. And I know at least my players certainly appreciate both the tactical side of being able to run to this and do that, but then they like the description part of, oh, there are flickering torches on the walls. There is cobwebs. Oh, wait, there's large cobwebs. Could that be a clue of something that's in the room? You know, things like that.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. There's a musty smell, or, you know, like it does kind of take some of that load off when most of the work is done there. It gives you time to focus on more of those details that are, you know, also important into that narrative.
Yeah, definitely. You know, and I feel like I just realized that maybe there's a third type of major DM styling. Because most of the conversation we've been talking about have been about these 3 photos here from Chuck's beautiful game room and table. But, you know, it might be fair to separate it out and just give it another video, maybe the next one, you know, down next month, to just talk about virtual tabletop DMing. and the differences, because I can tell you that as a DM who primarily DMs on virtual tabletops, there are some differences.
Yeah, there are definitely a couple.
Yeah, so I think that might be an upcoming video, for us to go into on styles to kind of gloss over.
And there's also the merge between the two, because
right.
Even with the terrain, 90% of our hobby is communicating or talking to each other. So, using the theater of the mind with the terrain is kind of almost a hand-in-hand element.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely.
Yeah, I think that's where UDT, it really makes a lot of sense. A spotlight terrain system, where you become a real master of DMing when you can switch between theater of the mind, terrain, theater of the mind, go back and forth, and knowing when to do it, because I think there are better times to do one over the other, honestly.
Yeah, I definitely think we ran out of time, because it was just an awesome topic. Like, I love the topic.
Yeah, this is a big subject, so we have lots of room to keep going the next time. All right, guys, you know the drill. If you have any questions or comments, please put them down below, and we will make them the focus of an upcoming video. And thank you again so much for watching. Thank you, Joe and Chuck. This has been a really great conversation.
It's been great. Thank you guys so much.
Have a nice evening.
Bye.
Bye.
Auf Wiedersehen.